So we're frustrated because let's just talk what we were just talking about. We were just having a frustrating conversation. We were a little frustrated I think we're frustrated with life and a little bit with each other about, we kind of feel like, in a sense, we're saying the same thing over and over again, particularly in these videos, because we are in the most Groundhog Day season of life that we've ever been in, where it feels like it's the same thing over and over again. And it's not that the sermons haven't been good or different, but as far as applying them to our lives, I don't know. I feel like we're just in a little bit of a cranky spot today.
We are.
As a family.
Yeah.
Right? Would you agree?
Yeah.
And so saying the same thing over and over again, feeling like we're living the same life over and over again, in a sense, is just frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, because you asked me, what are you going to talk about? And
right.
I was like, I feel like I'm just, a broken record.
And we were having a frustrating conversation. I hit record. So Sarah loves that.
Super fun.
Yeah.
But you had something to say.
Well, yeah, I had something to say for 37 minutes. I think the editing rights really hit home for me because of how I roll with sharing documents. And I just watched Josh Lewis's hot take, and he mentioned something very similar. Like, for example, when I send out my sermon outline, each of the pastors do something a little different insofar as sermon outline. I create the sermon outline that you see in the bulletin. I made specifically, like, I wanted these things to be highlighted, so I type that up, and I share that with a bunch of people, but I only allow 2 people to edit it, and that's Josh Snell, who's my administrative assistant, and Lisa Van Berkel, who's our director of communications. Like, if you guys think something can be communicated more clearly, Josh, if you see a typo, if I'm referencing 3 Peter and that doesn't exist, I need you to correct that. And everybody else can watch it, and they can see what's coming, but they can't edit it. And the thought of me thinking through, where else am I like that in life? Where it's like, particularly with my plan, my design, my goal with God, do I just, like, I say, yeah, it's really up to him, and I'm like, but seriously, it's my plan. And seriously, if it doesn't come together, I'm going to be pretty ticked. And especially when circumstances happen that we think are worse, but having to remember that God is sovereign and he's good. So if he's allowing these circumstances to happen in our life, again, God is sovereign and he's good. Whatever is happening in my life right now is better than I wish it would have been. Right? Isn't that something I remember a while ago at CDT, I think it was it Stuart Scott? Said something that really
has always stayed with me.
Which was what?
It's, if God is sovereign and God is good, then anything else would be bad. And that can be gut-wrenching. Oh. It's a very hard thing to wrap your mind around.
Yeah.
And I think if we don't have a firm foundation in who God is and his character and his attributes, that statement can feel awful.
What do you mean it can feel awful?
Well, hard things happen and bad things happen. And for you to say, if God is sovereign and God is good, anything else than what happened would be bad. That's mind-blowing.
Because I can think of 1,000 other ways that, practically speaking, could be better.
And that's why it's so important that we know who God is, and we really understand that, or as much as we can understand that.
And I think, I was talking to Bud Fennell earlier this week. He sent out a really helpful podcast that I listened to. So I was called to talk to him about that. But in the earlier parts of James, we didn't talk about that. But if you read James this week, you'll see it, where it says, James 1 verse 2, count it all joy, my brethren, when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. And I think it's the next verse. It says, and let patience or steadfastness have its work in you, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And for me, there's 2 things that are stated there. It's the trial, saying, you know what, this trial, count it joy because God's going to bring something good out of it. Great. That makes sense to me. But then the next part, it says, and let God take his time. And I'm like, ugh. That's the part that I have the biggest struggle with. It's like, okay, I can let God do his thing. I get it. Let him take his time. Like, can't he just do it faster? Can't he just cause whatever to come about in my life, whatever change he wants to bring about in our lives? Can he just, he created the whole world in 6 days, and on the seventh he rested. Can't he just change my heart and my mind? And it's thinking what you just said, that whatever is happening is God's plan, even if it's hard. It's good because God is going to do something. And if it was going any other way than what God has decreed, it would not have been good as the way it is now. I feel like you said it way clearer than I did, but yep.
Yeah.
So there we go.
We did it.
We did it. We can hit stop now. Go on with the rest of our day of Groundhog Day. Hope you guys are doing well. We miss you, especially you, Fort Thomas. Really miss seeing you guys, having fellowship with you guys, and we love you. We're praying for you, and hope the Lord blesses you on this day. Take care.